In this video, we'll talk about using joysticks with the Xbox Adaptive Controller. Specifically, we'll cover the use of joysticks that also have buttons on them in addition to the joystick itself, and how you can remap the functions of those buttons from their default to what you want them to be. The Xbox Adaptive Controller supports external joysticks that use the HID joystick or gamepad protocols by connecting them to the left or right USB port of the device. Some of these compatible joysticks may also have buttons on them in addition to the joystick itself. The Logitech Extreme 3D Pro Flight Stick is one example of this. With the Xbox Adaptive Controller Firmware Update 5.21, users can now map up to 12 digital buttons from any compatible USB joystick. And if your joystick includes a hat switch, it will automatically map to the D-pad up, down, left, and right by default. The 12 physical buttons that will be detected by the Xbox Adaptive Controller are determined by what the manufacturer of the joystick assigned as buttons 1 through 12 when they designed the joystick. Unfortunately, this cannot be changed. The controller will automatically assign default functions to buttons 1 through 12 or to as many buttons as the joystick has, to a maximum of 12 buttons. When you plug a joystick into the adaptive controller's left USB port, the controller will assign joystick buttons 1 through 12 to the following functions by default. Button 1, X1, Button 2, X2, Button 3, left stick press, Button 4, left bumper, Button 5, A, Button 6, B, Button 7, View, Button 8, Menu, Button 9, right stick press, Button 10, right bumper, Button 11, X, and Button 12, Y. In addition, for devices with a hat switch, the hat will be mapped to D-pad up, down, left, and right by default. Similarly, when you plug a joystick into the adaptive controller's right USB port, the controller will assign joystick buttons 1 through 12 to the following functions by default. Button 1, View, Button 2, Menu, Button 3, right stick press, Button 4, right bumper, Button 5, X, Button 6, Y, Button 7, X1, Button 8, X2, Button 9, left stick press, Button 10, left bumper, Button 11, A, Button 12, B. In addition, for devices with a hat switch, the hat switch will be mapped D-pad up, down, left, and right by default as well. As mentioned, you cannot change which physical buttons will work if there are more than 12. However, you can change the function of the 12 buttons and the hat switch from their default functions to another button function. Before remapping, it can be helpful to figure out what your joystick's default button assignments are, and you can use the Xbox Accessories app to do this. With your joystick plugged into the Xbox Adaptive Controller and that controller connected to your PC or console, launch the Xbox Accessories app. Under the Xbox Adaptive Controller, select the Test Mode button. In Test Mode, press any button on the joystick, and the button being pressed will appear under Button Pressed. Make sure to note which buttons map to which function, as that will be helpful when remapping. Now that you know how to figure out your joystick's default button assignments, let's go over how to remap those buttons in the Xbox Accessories app. So launch the app, then select the Configure option under the Xbox Adaptive Controller. Select New Profile. You can name it whatever you'd like. And now we need to reassign the default functions of the buttons on the joystick to what we want them to be. Even though the graphical interface on the Accessories app doesn't show the image of your joystick, remapping the default functions listed within the Xbox Adaptive Controller user interface itself to what you want them to be will also change the function of the buttons on the joystick you have plugged in. So we already know the default assignment for these buttons. If we want to change the function from its default to something else, we essentially have to remap the default assignment to the function we want that button to be on the joystick. For example, we know that button 1 on the Logitech 3D Pro Stick, which is the trigger-shaped button, is mapped to X1 by default when the joystick is plugged into the left USB port. In order to change this button from functioning as X1 to the desired function of right bumper, for example, I'm going to find the X1 function, and here under primary, I'm going to change it to right bumper. Similarly, If I want to change the button on the Logitech stick that's mapped to A by default to Y instead, I would select A in the user interface and then change A to Y, and so on. These changes will now reflect when I press the buttons on my joystick. You can also remap the functions of the hat switch on a joystick using the Xbox Accessories app. In the app, under the Xbox Adaptive Controller, select the Configure button. Using a similar process as before, you can either edit a profile or create a new one. On that profile's edit screen, we can remap the hat switch. The hat switch's functions are mapped to D-pad up, down, left, and right by default. So to change them, edit the D-pad functions on the Xbox Adaptive Controller user interface here. For example, let's say I want to map the 4 directions of the hat switch to X, A, Y, and B. I want the hat switch left to be X, down to be A, up to be Y, and right to be B. To do this, I would go into each button that the corresponding hat switch direction is currently assigned to and reassign their primary function. Hat switch left is currently assigned D-pad left, and I want it to be X. So select D-pad left, go into its primary setting, under button choose X, and press OK. For D-pad down, go into primary setting, under button choose A, then press OK. Similarly, map D-pad up to Y and D-pad right to B. When you are done remapping, press the back button to save the changes. And that is how you remap buttons on a joystick.